gold cross around Pam Bondi's neck caught the light as she rose to speak, a quiet, defiant glimmer against her crisp navy suit. The courtroom fell silent. Before she could say a word, Judge Raymond Hoffman's gaze locked on the necklace with sudden intensity, drawing the attention of several jurors. "Ms. Bondi." His voice cracked through the air like a whip. "Approach the bench, now." A wave of tension surged through courtroom 306 of the Tampa Federal Building. Pam had faced judges for over 20 years, but there was something in Hoffman's tone, cold, sharp, and barely controlled, that made her skin prickle. She walked forward slowly, her heels clicking against the polished floor. Her client, Jeffrey Reen, CEO of Gulf Coast Manufacturing, looked confused. They'd spent months preparing for this contract case. Nothing had hinted at trouble from the bench. As she reached the judge, Hoffman leaned forward, speaking low enough for only her and the clerk to hear. "That religious symbol around your neck," he said, each word crisp and cutting. "Remove it immediately." Pam instinctively touched the cross, a gift from her grandmother when she passed the bar. She had worn it to every hearing since. "Excuse me, Your Honor?" The words slipped out before she could stop them. Hoffman's eyes narrowed. The clerk stared fixedly at her computer screen, clearly uncomfortable. "You heard me, counselor. That cross violates the neutrality of my courtroom. Religion has no place in federal proceedings." Pam's pulse quickened, but she kept her expression calm. Hoffman was known for his unpredictability. Lawyers called him Hurricane Hoffman, a man whose moods could devastate cases without warning. "With all due respect, Your Honor," Pam said carefully, "this is personal jewelry. It's no more disruptive than a wedding ring." A dangerous spark flashed in Hoffman's eyes. "Are you questioning my authority in my courtroom, Ms. Bondi?" The air in the room tightened. Every eye was on them, though no one could hear the conversation. "No, Your Honor," she said evenly. "I'm only stating this cross holds personal meaning for me." "I don't care if it was blessed by the Pope himself," Hoffman snapped. "In my courtroom there will be no religious symbols. Remove it or face the consequences." For a moment, Pam considered tucking the necklace inside her blouse and moving on. It would be the easy, pragmatic choice, but the order felt wrong. An abuse of power with no legal basis. She straightened her shoulders. "I'm afraid I can't do that, Your Honor." Hoffman's jaw tightened. "Then you leave me no choice. Return to your table." As Pam walked back, she felt every eye following her. Jeffrey leaned in. "What's going on?" he whispered. Before she could reply, Hoffman's voice boomed. "Let the record show that attorney Pamela Bondi was instructed to remove a religious symbol that violates courtroom neutrality and has refused to comply. She is hereby held in contempt and fined $100,000. The gavel struck hard. Gasps rippled through the room. Jeffrey's face went pale. Opposing counsel Martin Chen froze mid-note. Even the court reporter hesitated, her fingers suspended above her machine. Pam stayed composed, though her heart raced. "Your Honor," she said firmly, "I object. There is no legal basis for prohibiting religious jewelry in federal court, and this fine is clearly punitive and excessive." Hoffman's expression darkened. "Objection noted. The fine stands. Would you like to make it $200,000, Ms. Bondi?" The threat hung in the air. Pam knew pushing further might hurt her client's case. She forced her voice calm. "No, Your Honor. Please note my objection on First Amendment grounds. I'm prepared to proceed." "Wise choice," Hoffman replied with a cold smile. "Now, regarding the contract dispute." The hearing continued for 3 surreal hours. Pam presented her case flawlessly, cross-examining witnesses with precision. But the weight of that fine never left her mind. Hoffman's demand wasn't about neutrality. It was about control. When the judge finally called recess, the courtroom erupted in whispers. Jeffrey turned to her, disbelief on his face. "Pam, what the hell was that?" $100,000 for a necklace." Pam gathered her papers, buying a moment to steady herself. It happened because Judge Hoffman decided to overstep his authority. "This is insane," Jeffrey said. "The company can help pay the fine." "No," Pam cut him off. "This isn't your battle. It's mine." Martin Chen approached quietly. Despite years of rivalry, there was respect in his eyes. "That was completely out of line," he said. "I've never seen anything like it." "Neither have I," Pam replied. "For what it's worth," Chen added, "half the attorneys in Tampa would back you if you challenge this. Hoffman's been getting worse." As the courtroom emptied, Pam's phone buzzed. A message from her paralegal, Lauren Rivera. "Pam, what's happening?" "Is this real?" She texted back, "Yes, meeting at the office in 20. Jeffrey nodded. "Do what you need to do. I trust you." Pam left the courtroom. In the hallway, a young clerk hurried after her. "Ms. Bondi," she whispered, glancing around nervously. "That was wrong. I've worked for Judge Hoffman 2 years. He's never done anything like that." Pam studied her. "What's your name?" "Sarah Mitchell." "I'm just a clerk, but the judge wears a Masonic ring every day. No one says a word about it." Pam froze. A Masonic ring, clearly symbolic, and yet he called her cross a violation of neutrality. The hypocrisy was staggering. 20 minutes later, she stepped into Bondi Legal Group. Reporters and news vans already crowded outside. Her phone buzzed nonstop with messages. Lauren met her at the elevator. "Conference room A is ready. Jackson and Maria are waiting. I called them as soon as I saw the headlines." Jackson Chen, her top associate, specialized in constitutional law. Maria Delgado, her media strategist, had been a legal correspondent for CNN. If there was ever a moment Pam needed them, it was now. "What's the situation?" Pam asked as they walked. Lauren swiped her tablet. "Local stations are running it. The Tampa Bay Times just published a piece. Social media is exploding. A car crossfine is trending statewide." Pam exhaled. "That was fast." "It's a perfect storm," Lauren said. "Religious freedom, judicial overreach, and a female attorney standing up to a male judge. Everyone's got an opinion." In the conference room, Jackson and Maria looked up from a laptop. "Tell us everything," Jackson said. For the next 10 minutes, Pam laid it all out. Hoffman's demand, her refusal, the fine, and the revelation about his Masonic ring. Jackson took notes, his expression darkening with each detail. "This is a textbook First Amendment violation," he said finally. "Hoffman doesn't have a legal leg to stand on. But he has power," Maria added. "And that fine, he meant it to scare you." Pam nodded. "And he's about to find out I don't scare easily. He wants to make an example of me. Either pay a crushing fine or bow to his authority." "The timing's interesting too," Lauren said. "Hoffman's under consideration for the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals. This kind of hardline stance on courtroom neutrality might impress certain people on the committee, at your expense." Pam's jaw tightened. "Perfect," she said bitterly. Jackson tapped his pen on the table. "We fight this on 2 fronts, legal and public. I'll file an emergency motion to vacate the contempt order. It'll be ready by tomorrow morning." "And publicly?" Pam asked, turning to Maria. Maria's eyes gleamed. Before joining Bondi Legal, she'd built her name exposing judicial misconduct. We control the narrative. Right now, people are hearing, "Attorney fined for religious symbol." We need them to hear, "Judge abuses power and attacks religious freedom." The Florida Bar Association will have to respond, Lauren added. "They can't ignore a fine this excessive over something so trivial." "And the Judicial Qualifications Commission," Jackson said. "If this gets enough attention, they might launch an investigation." Pam walked to the window, looking down at the swarm of news vans outside. This wasn't how her week was supposed to go. Gulf Coast Manufacturing Veer's coastal suppliers should have been her focus. A high-stakes contract dispute worth millions. Now she was at the center of a constitutional battle that threatened her career and finances. "Pam," Lauren's voice pulled her back. "What do you want to do?" Pam turned. "I want to fight. Not just for myself, but because this can't stand. If Hoffman can fine me $100,000 for wearing a cross, what's to stop other judges from doing the same?" Jackson nodded. "I'll start drafting. We'll cite Employment Division versus Smith, Church of the Lukumi Babalu I versus City of Hialeah, and Capitol Square Review Board versus Panett. Don't forget Town of Greece versus Galloway," Pam said. "It reinforces that the mere presence of a religious symbol isn't government endorsement." Maria looked up. "Media's already calling him, a dozen requests for comments." "Fox News wants you live tonight," Pam hesitated. The publicity could help, but it might also make Hoffman angrier. She still had to appear before him tomorrow. No interviews yet, she decided. Put out a short statement, confirm the fine, say I'll challenge it on constitutional grounds, and emphasize I'm focused on my client's case. "No gasoline on the fire until we file." Maria nodded, typing quickly. "There's something else," Lauren said quietly. "Sarah from Hoffman's chambers called while you were driving. He wants to see you privately in his office tomorrow morning before court." The room went still. A private meeting after a punitive fine was highly irregular. "You shouldn't go alone," Jackson said. "I won't," Pam replied. "Jackson, you'll come as my counsel. Lauren, call Sarah back and confirm the meeting, but tell her I'll be accompanied." As the team scattered to work, Pam stayed behind. "She reach ya." Inside, Jackson waited near security. "You ready?" he asked. "More than ready," Pam said steadily. "Got everything?" He patted his briefcase. Photo of Chen, Hoffman's Masonic ring, precedent cases, and our motion to vacate. They reached Hoffman's chambers. Sarah, the young clerk who had secretly tipped Pam off, avoided eye contact as she led them to a small conference room. "They're not here yet," she said quietly. Pam set out her materials with precision. Jackson watched her, impressed. "Most lawyers would be falling apart right now," he said. Pam smiled faintly. "Most lawyers aren't me." Judge Hoffman entered with Martin Chen at his side. His face was composed, but the tension in his shoulders betrayed unease. "Good morning," he said stiffly. Taking his seat, a monitor flickered on, revealing Chief Judge Elena Mercer, a stern woman known for fairness and unshakable ethics. "Thank you all for joining on such short notice," Mercer began. "We have an unusual situation here. Judge Hoffman, please explain yesterday's contempt citation." Hoffman cleared his throat. "Yesterday I instructed Ms. Bondi to remove a religious symbol in my courtroom. When she refused, I issued a contempt citation and a fine." Jackson couldn't hold back. $100,000? For wearing jewelry? "Counselor," Mercer warned, "let's maintain decorum." She turned back to Hoffman. "Please explain the legal basis for prohibiting religious jewelry." "It's about neutrality," Hoffman said. "Religious symbols may suggest bias." Pam's tone was calm but pointed. "Do you prohibit all religious symbols, Judge Hoffman?" "This isn't an interrogation," he snapped. "No," Mercer interrupted. "But it's a relevant question. Do you enforce this rule uniformly?" A long silence followed. Hoffman hesitated. "I apply rules as appropriate to maintain the dignity of my courtroom," he said finally. "Very well," Mercer said. "I believe that concludes our discussion. Judge Hoffman, the fine is vacated. This court affirms that religious expression, within reasonable bounds, is constitutionally protected." Pam exhaled quietly. They had achieved exactly what they came for. "Thank you, Your Honor," she said. As Mercer's screen went dark, Hoffman gathered his papers without meeting anyone's eyes. "Regular session begins at 10, he muttered before leaving. Chen approached Pam. "That was handled masterfully," he said softly. "I'm glad the photo helped." "I appreciate your integrity," Pam replied. "That couldn't have been easy." "Some principles," Chen said, "are bigger than the courtroom." As they walked down the hall, Jackson let out a low whistle. That went better than anyone could have hoped. Pam allowed herself a small, steady smile. "It wasn't luck," she said. "It was conviction." Mira had forced the issue, doing exactly what a chief judge should, upholding the Constitution, even when it meant checking one of their own. Outside, the crowd had grown. Word had spread that Pam was meeting with the judges, and people were waiting anxiously for news. When she appeared at the top of the steps, a hush fell over them. For a moment, she considered walking past. This wasn't about publicity or personal glory. But she realized these people weren't just there for her. They were there for what she represented, the principle that no one should be punished for their faith. She stepped forward. "The contempt citation and fine have been vacated," she announced. "Judge Hoffman will issue a formal order acknowledging that religious jewelry is protected expression in his courtroom." A cheer erupted. Cameras flashed as people hugged and cried. It wasn't just Pam's victory. It was a victory for everyone who valued religious freedom. A young woman pushed through the crowd, clutching a law textbook. "Ms. Bondi," she said, her voice trembling. "I wear a hijab. I've been terrified about how I'll be treated when I start practicing." "What you did, it matters to people like me." Pam took her hand. Then it was worth every moment of stress. Earlier that day, Pam had stood in front of the judge's bench. "Your Honor," she said, placing a photograph on the table. "This shows Attorney Chen wearing a Star of David pin in your courtroom just 3 weeks ago." "No fine, no contempt citation." Hoffman's face reddened. "That was an oversight." Pam laid down another document. A sworn statement from court reporter Melissa Jenkins confirms that you wear a Masonic ring during proceedings. The Freemasons carry religious undertones, yet you wear this symbol openly while fining me for wearing a cross. Judge Mara leaned forward. Judge Hoffman, is this accurate? The Masonic Order is a fraternal organization, not a religion, Hoffman snapped. Pam stayed composed. Then why the selective enforcement, Your Honor? If neutrality mattered, you'd apply it equally. This is completely inappropriate, Hoffman barked, his composure cracking. What's inappropriate, Jackson interjected, is a $100,000 fine for constitutionally protected expression. Judge Mercer raised her hand. Ms. Bondi, you've prepared a motion to vacate the contempt order? Yes, Your Honor. Pam handed copies around the room. This cites 14 Supreme Court cases affirming that personal religious expression is protected under the First Amendment. Government, including the courts, cannot restrict it without a compelling, narrowly tailored reason. Mercer flipped through the pages. This is thorough. I've also documented, Pam continued, that the fine is punitive and unprecedented. The largest in this district before now was $55,000 for shouting at a witness. My cross disrupted nothing. The room fell silent. Finally, Judge Mercer looked at Hoffman. After reviewing these materials, do you wish to reconsider yesterday's ruling? All eyes turned to him. The evidence was overwhelming. Selective enforcement, constitutional precedent, excessive punishment. I maintain I have authority to control my courtroom, Hoffman said stiffly. No one questions that, Mercer replied. But prohibiting a small religious symbol isn't a legitimate use of that authority, especially when applied selectively. The silence was sharp. Then Mercer spoke again, her tone deliberate. In light of the constitutional issues raised, I believe the prudent course is to vacate the contempt order and fine. It wasn't a suggestion. She was giving Hoffman a dignified way out. After a tense pause, he nodded. Very well. The contempt citation and fine are vacated. Pam had won, but she wasn't finished. Thank you, Your Honor, she said. But I also request a formal acknowledgement that wearing religious jewelry does not violate courtroom rules. Hoffman's eyes flashed. You've got your fine rescinded, counselor. Don't push your luck. It's not about luck, Pam replied calmly. It's about making sure this doesn't happen to anyone else, Mercer interjected. I agree. Judge Hoffman, please prepare a written order clarifying that personal religious jewelry is permitted consistent with First Amendment protections. Hoffman looked like he'd swallowed something bitter, but nodded. I'll prepare it by 10 a.m. The next morning, the courtroom was packed. Hoffman entered, his face unreadable. Before we continue with Gulf Coast Manufacturing versus Coastal Suppliers, he began, I have an order to read into the record. He lifted a document. The contempt citation and fine against attorney Pamela Bondi are hereby vacated. This court acknowledges that the wearing of personal religious jewelry, including crosses, stars of David, and other symbols, is protected expression under the First Amendment and does not violate courtroom decorum when worn in a non-disruptive manner. A murmur swept through the gallery. Pam stayed professional, but inside a wave of satisfaction surged. This was no longer just personal vindication. It was now legal precedent. The rest of the trial moved smoothly. Hoffman, under scrutiny, was fair and measured. Pam's cross-examination dismantled the opposing witness's credibility, and by week's end the jury awarded full damages to her client. As she gathered her things, she caught Hoffman's eye. He gave a brief, respectful nod, not quite an apology but close. Outside, the Tampa sun bathed the courthouse in gold. Reporters swarmed, but Pam kept her words focused. This was never about me, she told them. It was about ensuring that our rights don't disappear when we enter a courtroom. Messages of support poured in, from bar associations, law students, and ordinary citizens. The Florida Bar announced a task force on courtroom religious expression. National legal groups requested to use her case in training programs. That evening, her office buzzed with quiet celebration. Jeffrey raised a glass. To Pam, he said, who reminded us that some battles choose you, but how you fight them defines you. Later, as laughter filled the room, Pam's phone buzzed. It was an email. From Sarah Mitchell, Judge Hoffman's clerk. Miss Bondi, Judge Hoffman has withdrawn his name from consideration for the 11th Circuit. Your stand made a difference. I've also accepted a position with the Religious Freedom Legal Defense Fund. Thank you for showing me what courage looks like. Pam smiled. Change often started quietly, with one person refusing to back down. Hours later, Lauren approached holding a tablet. You should see this, she said. The headline read, Florida Judicial Commission opens investigation into Judge Hoffman's conduct. 3 more attorneys had come forward with similar stories. Pam handed the tablet back. That's not why I did this. I know, Lauren said softly. But it still matters. That night, Pam stood by her window overlooking Tampa Bay, the city lights shimmering on the water. She thought of all the messages she'd received, from people of every faith, from students, from citizens who saw in her courage something deeply personal. Her phone rang, an unfamiliar number. Washington, D.C., Pamela Bondi, she answered. Pam allowed herself a small, steady smile. It wasn't